But he's not wrong. The whole world has become a casino.
Yeah, because he's making it a casino.
Well, he certainly has contributed, yes.
Contributed?
Well,
Bill,
you think Poly Market wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Donald Trump? I think it would anyway.
I'll tell you what, it would absolutely exist.
Okay.
And I want to know if there's any chance that you're not going to run, by the way, because I will put in a bet right now. Because that's the way the corruption works these days. It's right in your face. I don't want to see this soldier be the face of this problem. Of course, what he did is wrong. That's easy. You're making billion-dollar oil bets minutes before the president makes an announcement, and no one on the right says anything except Anna Paulina Luna and 2 or 3 others who should all be heroized for this, in my opinion.
In today's video, Chris Cuomo calls out Bill Maher on Real Time with Bill Maher as they clash over crime, punishment, and government accountability. Chris Cuomo pushes back with facts that put Bill Maher's arguments under pressure. So let's dive in and watch how Chris Cuomo shuts down Bill Maher on Real Time with Bill Maher.
Governor Moore, what should the government's approach be to regulating prediction markets and preventing insider trading? Oh, I know why they asked this, because you just made a move on that, right?
I sure did, yeah. We just signed an executive order banning anyone in Maryland state government from doing any type of predictions market game. It's really for 2 reasons. One, specifically on the prediction markets, it actually is ridiculous. So, for example, if you look at the most recent polls that we have seen, we're at around 57% approval rating, one of the higher numbers for any governor. If you look at the prediction markets on the probability that I'll win re-election, it's coming in around 97%, right? So, what was keeping me or my family from saying, you know what, we have an idea. Let's put a $250,000 bet that I won't win re-election. And then I just basically tank it in. I stop going to work. I go to my debate and I start stripping naked.
That might backfire. I don't know.
And then I quit. And then someone else wins, and I would walk away with about $4 million.
So you made this executive move. Was there any pushback in the state from anybody?
I don't care.
I know, but was there?
I mean, listen,
who can defend? I mean, who can you defend?
No. I'm saying like someone in the government is like, but I want to do grifting bets.
But I have an idea.
My grift.
Because,
I mean, it's crazy. And it's just like, it's ridiculous when you think about the type of grifting that goes on. And this goes on the heels of a whole bunch of other stuff.
And yes, today, this was in the news. A soldier who was involved in the operation to get Maduro out of Venezuela, which was a success, by the way.
Yep.
Okay, we got to give success.
Yep.
Okay, he bet on it.
Yeah.
He won $400,000, and they asked Trump about it, and Trump said, "The whole world, unfortunately, has become somewhat of a casino."
No irony. No irony when he said it.
Because he used to have casino.
I gotta tell you,
but he's not wrong. The whole world has become a casino.
Yeah, because he's making it a casino.
Well, he certainly has contributed, yes.
Contributed?
Well,
Bill,
you think Poly Market wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Donald Trump? I think it would anyway.
I'll tell you what, it would absolutely exist.
Okay.
And I want to know if there's any chance that you're not going to run, by the way, because I will put in a bet right now. Because that's the way the corruption works these days. It's right in your face. I don't want to see this soldier be the face of this problem. Of course, what he did is wrong. That's easy. You're making billion-dollar oil bets minutes before the president makes an announcement, and no one on the right says anything except Anna Paulina Luna and 2 or 3 others who should all be heroized for this, in my opinion.
What makes this interesting is that prediction markets aren't just another form of entertainment when government officials and people with privileged information are involved. The real issue is the information advantage. A regular person making a prediction about an election or military operation is playing with incomplete information, while someone inside the government may know something that the public simply doesn't. That's why the soldier's $400,000 bet shouldn't become the entire conversation. The bigger concern is whether these markets are creating incentives for people close to major decisions to profit from information before everyone else gets access to it. And this isn't just about one political party. Congress has spent years debating stock trading by lawmakers because the public understands the basic problem. Even the appearance of a conflict can damage trust. Members of Congress regularly receive information through briefings, hearings, and private conversations that ordinary investors don't have. Prediction markets create a similar challenge. If a government employee can potentially profit from an event they have inside knowledge about, the question isn't simply whether they technically broke a rule, it's whether the system gives insiders an opportunity that ordinary citizens will never have. There's also a broader point here. Markets work best when participants believe the rules are reasonably fair. If people start thinking political connections provide an advantage, confidence in the entire system takes a hit. So yes, individual misconduct should be investigated, but focusing exclusively on one person misses the bigger structural problem. The real question is whether government officials should ever be allowed to financially benefit from information connected to decisions they help influence. That standard should apply regardless of party.
The corruption is so in your face. Yes, what this cat did was wrong, okay? And he's going to suffer. But he should not be the face of the problem. And people in Congress who are yapping about him when they've said nothing about these other things are the worst. And when they're trading stocks and they won't even have a vote on the bill, they are the worst. They're the worst.
We could pass a law tomorrow. Congress could pass a law tomorrow doing what you did. Right. They could pass a law tomorrow preventing themselves from trading stocks. They're not doing it. They're not even bound by the employment discrimination laws that they've passed for everyone else. And we don't hold them accountable. We're just like, oh, I guess Congress just puts out press releases and holds hearings, and we fight over gerrymandering. Like, put the pressure where it belongs, not on the courts of whether they're going to uphold or strike this down. That is a statutory question, which means it's up to Congress.
How many people, if you did a survey, would even know who the congressperson is? One guy applauded. I didn't even know what, I don't know if it was like, I do, or it was like, yeah, you're right, Bill. I don't know.
Well, their new approval rating is at 10%, and I would love to meet someone in the 10%. Who's like, yeah, they're crushing it out there.
It's them. It's them. That's who it is. It's them and the donors. You know, maybe that's who it is.
All right. Panel, what does the panel think of the DOJ bringing back firing squads for executions? That's why we love overtime. It's just questions I would never ask. But this is what people want to know. People want to know. We're bringing back firing squads?
I think there is a great argument. First of all, it doesn't violate the 8th Amendment because we had versions of this at the founding.
It's better.
It's better. I actually think that what we have done, and we've done this in all parts of our society, we have sanitized our language. We have sanitized everything so that we don't actually understand that we are putting people to death by the government. Right? I actually think that's okay, but we shouldn't sanitize it. We should do a firing squad so that people know what we're doing.
Well, okay, if you're going to do it efficiently. A firing squad, they're dead in a second.
That's right.
What they do now is this chemical thing where they kind of just put you out. You know, it's the Nora Jones music is playing.
Close to it.
It's like a spot. Wait, really? And then half the time, the shit they put in you doesn't work.
It takes a really long time to put someone to death. We have people watching it.
It's not, yeah.
Yeah.
Well.
Can I offer a different perspective?
Yes, please.
Just while we're all lining up to shoot people in the head.
I'm just saying, if you're going to do it, that's the way.
I think that there's an aspect of the death penalty that should matter, which is what is the social instruction? And I think that the reason they're doing this is that this administration is very embracing of brutality. He has a very misplaced sense of macho, this president. And, yeah, we're just going to shoot you in the head is some kind of attempt to be tough. And it's not tough. It's weak. And I think these kinds of instructions, you know, look, this is the same story for all of our families. My family came to this country because they thought it was a place that was going to be better, that was beautiful for opportunity, where they would have a chance, where they didn't have to worry about the oppression they had at home. That's not what we are with these kinds of things. If you want the death penalty, fine. It doesn't work, Okay, it doesn't deter crime.
Well, it deters that criminal.
It is, yeah, it does, but it gives an instruction that death is okay, that murder is okay, killing is okay. It's not murder technically, killing is okay. I think the social instruction matters. I think when you're saying, yeah, we'll just shoot you in the head, I think it cheapens something that should be the highest value.
One thing that gets overlooked in this conversation is that congressional ethics and criminal justice are both really questions of public trust. When lawmakers create rules for everyone else but leave themselves outside those same standards, people naturally start wondering whether the system is actually designed to protect the public or the people in power. The stock trading issue is a perfect example. Members of Congress have access to briefings, classified information, and policy discussions that can potentially affect companies and entire industries. Even when a specific trade isn't proven to be illegal, the appearance of an unfair advantage is enough to create serious credibility problems. That's why stronger disclosure rules and clearer restrictions matter. The death penalty discussion raises a different but equally important question. What message does government violence send? The United States already has enormous power to punish people through the justice system. Choosing a method that emphasizes spectacle or brutality doesn't necessarily make the system more effective. And the evidence on deterrence is important here. Research has generally failed to establish that executions provide a unique deterrent effect compared with other severe criminal penalties. Meanwhile, wrongful convictions remain a serious concern because the death penalty is irreversible. More than 190 people sentenced to death in the US have been exonerated since 1973. So the bigger issue isn't whether one execution method looks more efficient. It's whether government policy should be driven by evidence, fairness, and restraint rather than political theater. That same principle applies to Congress. The people making the rules should be held to the same standards they're asking everyone else to follow.
Where are you on the death penalty? Where is it in Maryland, and where are you personally?
We in Maryland, it's banned inside of Maryland. But I do think it is an important point, because when people are talking about the death penalty as an idea of a deterrence, the reality is it's not, right? There's no data that shows that this is a deterrence for how people are going to behave or how people are going to act. But it does create a bigger thing about how are we thinking about this value? How are we thinking about what it is that we hope for and what it is that we're aspiring to? And I think about it in context of this, right? When I first became the governor, we had an absolute violence crisis within our state. I mean, Baltimore City was averaging almost a homicide a day when I first became the governor. And I was very clear that we were going to have a different type of approach, that we made historic investments in local law enforcement. We made historic investments, and we made Maryland one of the only states that actually helps to fund the U.S. attorney out of balance sheet. So if a person commits a violent crime, particularly with a firearm, I'm going to have them handcuffed in 24 hours, and we're going to make sure that crime, especially if it is a firearm crime, we're going to help to make sure that goes federal. And if you look at the results, we've now seen how the violent crime rate in Maryland is down nearly 50%. It's the fastest drop in the entire country. The last time the homicide rate was this low in Baltimore City, I wasn't born yet. The reason I bring that up is this. We did not increase the severity of the punishment. We increased the probability. We made sure that you knew you wanted to get there and be violent in our communities. You want to make communities and families like mine less safe, or we're going to get you, and you're not going to get out. We did not have to increase and say, like, we're adding a death penalty to it, but we said you will be held to account, and it has worked better and faster than anywhere else in the entire country.
Well,
Speed and certainty are the two things that we know work against violent crime.
That's right.
and that's what I mean about being a Democrat who's able to talk about a subject like that, in a more centrist way. You know what I'm talking about? Okay.
And it also matters that he's a guy who signed up, at 17 to have to make that kind of life or death decision.
Right.
Because he wasn't a war correspondent. You know what I mean? Like, this is a real warrior that you got sitting next to you. And I think that matters, and I think it gives you a different perspective.
One thing worth adding to this is that crime policy doesn't have to be a choice between being tough and being compassionate. The strongest evidence suggests that people are often deterred less by the maximum punishment and more by how likely they believe they are to be caught and held accountable. That distinction matters because violent crime can be reduced without automatically escalating every sentence to its harshest possible level. Better investigations, faster prosecutions, targeted policing, and removing repeat offenders from the streets can have a much more immediate impact on public safety. There's also an important lesson from other cities. Crime prevention works best when law enforcement is paired with investments that address the conditions that allow violence to spread. Community violence intervention programs, youth employment, substance abuse treatment, and focused policing can work together instead of being treated as competing ideas. And when we're talking about the death penalty, there's another problem that shouldn't be ignored. Mistakes are permanent. More than 190 people sentenced to death in the United States have been exonerated since 1973. That alone should make policymakers extremely cautious about expanding irreversible punishment. The bigger point is that public safety should be measured by outcomes, not by how severe a policy sounds on television. If homicide falls because investigators solve cases faster, prosecutors build stronger cases, and dangerous offenders are consistently removed from the streets, that's a success worth paying attention to. You don't have to glorify punishment to take violent crime seriously. A system that catches dangerous criminals reliably, protects victims, and prevents future violence can be both firm and responsible. Pause. Are you getting tired of getting half the story from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, left, right, and center, are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights into media bias and political trends. Stay informed, think for yourself, and check out Ground News in the description down below.